On today's show, Domantas Sabonis speaks for the first time since last season ended about all of the offseason moves, plus some leaked scheduled dates for the Sacramento Kings, including opening night and some big returns to Sacramento, and Jonathan Kuminga putting the maximum pressure on the Golden State Warriors. It's all right here for you on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News, and I had the opportunity, the privilege really, to attend the basketball camp of Domantas Sabonis. This is the second year that he has done this out at Hardwood Palace in Rockland, which is a ginormous warehouse with like 6 or 7 basketball courts in it. It's funny. I grew up in the Rockland, Roseville area. I used to go to basketball camps myself and play basketball games in Hardwood Palace. And I've been there a number of times over the last handful of years to these different camps. Domantas Sabonis, Malik Monk, and former King De'Aaron Fox put on a lot of camps there. And this was our first real opportunity to see Domas and to be able to speak with him a little bit just about, one, of course, the camp, but mainly everything that's happened with the Kings organization, right? The last time we talked to Sabonis, he was coming off of a very disappointing performance and the Kings getting embarrassed really in the play-in tournament by the Dallas Mavericks. And Domas was talking about wanting to be involved or have an idea, a good understanding of the direction of the Sacramento Kings, as we all were looking for that. So first chance we got to talk to Sabonis about the moves that the Kings have made, bringing in Scott Perry, the hiring of Doug Christie full-time as the head coach, some of the rookies that the Kings drafted, the signing of Dennis Schroeder, right? The first opportunity we got to talk to him about that, we definitely pounced on here in the Sacramento media. And I'm going to play for you his about 4.5 minutes of him talking just about the Kings moves and everything. And I'll pause intermittently and share my thoughts on some of the things that he had to say. But the first thing that stood out to me when watching Domas, first off, this is a camp. It's around kids. Domas is a father himself. He has his son, Tiger, who's a little bit younger than my son, about 3.5 years old. And so he's very comfortable around kids. Domas has always been super community oriented, had some fun with these kids. I actually posted a clip on Twitter of him blocking a kid, like just completely rejecting a kid. They were playing one-on-one, and Domas just rejected the crap out of him. I asked him about it afterwards, and he said the kid was talking a little bit, so he had to humble the kid. But Domas looked refreshed, right? It looked like he had gotten away last season, being as chaotic as it was, regardless of how responsible Sabonis was for some of that chaos or not. It wears on everybody. You know, it wore on me. It wore on fans. It wore on everybody. So to see him get away and look refreshed coming into this season, that jumped off the page to me right away, and that'll probably shine through in the clip that I'm about to play for you. But let's jump in. Here is Domantas Sabonis, or the part of Domantas Sabonis talking about the offseason moves and everything going on. And again, we'll pause it and I'll share my thoughts on some of the things that he had to say as it goes on. Here we go.
A lot has changed. A lot's probably still going to change. So, we're just going to wait and see till training camp.
Do you feel like you can be an active voice in voicing what you feel could be potentially the best for the team going forward?
Yeah, of course. They listen to us. They want to hear what we think. I think Scott's done a great job so far, and he's trying to turn things around just like everyone else.
You got your point guard.
Yeah.
What did you think of that?
It was good. We didn't have one, so right now we have a starting caliber point guard. Dennis is very talented. He's playing in the Eurobasket this summer, so we'll see him later. He'll come in shape and ready to go.
All right, so a few things there. First, he talks about still being involved in decision making, or at least being considered in decision making by Scott Perry, which is good. We know that's something Domantas Sabonis is passionate about. He's talked about that for years, even before all the chaos of last season, wanting to be at least involved or consulted. Geez Louise, Matt, consulted in decisions and just the thought process going forward. But then he talks about Dennis Schroeder there, the signing of Dennis Schroeder. And I know a lot of people are reacting to that line of, we didn't have a starting caliber point guard, like now we do. And I think some people are trying to tie that comment into De'Aaron Fox. I don't think that's the case at all. De'Aaron Fox is absolutely a starting caliber point guard. He's a star caliber point guard. Now, he's not necessarily a true point guard in terms of, and I should use air quotes with true point guard, because people associate that with like pass first, Rajon Rondo, Steve Nash, Chris Paul type point guards. Fox is more of a scoring point guard, but we see a lot more scoring point guards in the league today. So you could kind of apply that logic of thought. But I think what Domas is clearly talking about is, like, after the De'Aaron Fox trade, we did not have a point guard to run the offense. And that's not just something that he's pointed out. That's something that Scott Perry pointed out when he first took the job. That's something that we've talked about a lot here on Locked On Kings. The fan base has talked a lot about. A desperate need for this team was to go out and fill that point guard position. I also don't think in any way this is a shot at someone like Malik Monk, who tried to hold down that position or anything. I think Domas is being honest. Like, the Kings didn't have a point guard. Now they do in Dennis Schroeder. He talks about Dennis playing in Eurobasket, had a pretty impressive performance the other day in Eurobasket. So he'll come in, hopefully, knock on wood, he's doesn't get hurt or anything like that. He'll come into training camp more than in basketball shape, and hopefully the Kings can hit the ground running with that relationship.
Those draft picks, Maxey, and Kuminga as well. What do you think of
Great. They performed at a high level. I had IJ and Maxime out in Napa for a week, and we're just getting workout together and trying to teach the young guys some things.
This should excite a lot of people. If you didn't hear the question clearly, that was Jake Gayden from CBS 13 just asking what he thought of the rookies, Nick Clifford and Maxime Reynaud. And a lot of people out of the two are focusing on Maxime because Reynaud is a big man, but also because Maxime has talked a lot about how he has watched a lot of Domantas Sabonis, that Domas is one of his favorite players to kind of model his game after, and how excited he is to learn from Domas. Well, I think some people felt a certain type of way or noticed that Domas never went to Las Vegas to like watch this team play or anything like that. Again, I think it's fine that he got away, but Domas is saying here, no, I had Maxime Reynaud and Isaac Jones, who might get some opportunity at the center spot this season. I had both of them out to my place in Napa, and we got some work in. We spent some time together. And with Maxime Reynaud specifically, I think that's really exciting. It's really good to hear. It's good leadership on the standpoint or from the side of Domas. And I mean, I think Maxime Reynaud needs to be an absolute sponge for Domas. I think Maxime should almost be attached to the hip with Domas throughout training camp and throughout this season, not just to help him get physically stronger and more comfortable with the physicality of the NBA in the center position, but to have those two kind of work with one another and develop a chemistry that maybe potentially opens the door to both of them being on the floor at the same time. Maxime's ability on offense to space the floor, knock down that three-point shot, in theory, goes perfect with a center like Domantas Sabonis, who can knock down the three, but is going to work more in the mid-range, high post, sometimes low post. So in theory, those two can work together, and you want to see them already spending time together, getting comfortable together. I really was excited to hear that clip or that spot from Domas talking about how he's always already working with those young guys.
You know the relationship that you've had with Doug already, to see him get the interim tag taken off.
Yeah.
How excited are you to continue to work with him?
Very excited. I'm very happy for him. He was in there with me those 3 summers every day in the gym, so I've seen how hard he works every day, and for him to have this opportunity, the fans love him. He's one of us here, so I think it's going to be very exciting.
Scott Perry said he had meetings with everybody, yourself included. I'm not asking for details of the meeting, but how did that meeting go in that conversation with him?
It went well. We're very excited. I think we think alike, and we both want to get this thing running in the right direction, and his values are aligned with mine.
I like that. The first question I asked Domas about Doug, and of course he's had a great relationship with Doug. Doug was basically his player development coach while he was in that assistant coach position here in Sacramento. So we know that Domas and Doug already have a good established relationship between the two of them. But to hear that the meeting with Scott Perry went well, I assume it did, and that they're aligned in their values, and I basically consider that to be the character traits that Scott Perry has laid out there about how he wants the Sacramento Kings to play. Domantas Sabonis agrees with, which is encouraging. Again, all indications that I've got from people that I've talked to is that Scott Perry likes Domantas Sabonis a lot, views him as part of a long-term future here in Sacramento, regardless of his contract situation. So to hear that they're at least aligned in those values and those traits, there's not a disconnect there. Not that I would expect Domas to go like, yeah, we're not on the same page or anything like that, but I think Kings fans should be encouraged by that.
Scott's saying that you're maybe the face of the franchise now. Do you take upon yourself to try to hold that I don't know, weight, that role at all?
I don't really think about it as much. Everywhere since the day I got here, I felt like there's always been pressure with the Kings, to come out and perform. And, I'm just trying to deliver and do my part.
Do you go with past year's been crazy. Do you feel like you have a message for Kings fans? Do you kind of see the vision going forward?
Scott's coming in here and trying to change things around, in the right direction. I feel like what the fans want, what the fans believe in, and to come out, play hard, run, be a gritty team, and so far we're making the right moves. Everyone's working hard in summer, and it's gonna all come down to training camp and get together and make it work.
Is it weird to see JV leave, or did you kind of understand that?
Understand it. We know where all these decisions are coming from, and you just gotta, it's sad to see a good friend leave, but at the same time you understand. I'm happy for him. He's with the Nuggets now. They're a top team in the West. And all he wants to do is win. So I know he's happy.
It's hard to incorporate anybody mid-season. Zach LaVine, such an important piece on offense. Having a training camp with you, LaVine, and DeMar together and potentially 82 games, how much better do you think the trio of you can be?
I think it's going to help. Coming in halfway through the season, also new coach. Not the system the coach might want to play. Players learning it. So hopefully this season, I know Doug's working hard on the new system, how he wants to play us, and he's going to translate it through the training camp. And so far all summer we've been getting little bits and pieces of that new offense. So hopefully when training camp comes, it's just smooth and we're ready to go.
This time last year you went to USC and spent some time with both Doug and DeMar. Are you continuing to do that? Are we going to see more of the two-man game?
Yeah, of course. I'm flying down tonight after the camp to LA, so we're going to meet up with some guys, and just get some work in.
Okay, a couple things there. First thing is that's really for a lot of Kings fans to hang their hope on or place their hope in going into this season is that, hey, it didn't look the best. It looked kind of disjointed when you had DeMar and Zach back together and Domas with them as this new big three. But that was only the final third of the season, and they incorporated Zach LaVine mid-season with all this chaos going on. And Zach LaVine had just had a baby and all, and had to move from Chicago back to the West Coast, blah, 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 blah. Now that they get a training camp together, now that they get potentially 82 games together, now we're going to start to see them gel and come together more. So that's why I asked that question to Domas, and he talked about, it's going to help. It's definitely going to help just to have the time together to work in training camp. And then I'm glad he brought up too. It's we also have a coach now that can implement his offense and not just kind of carry over and make subtle changes to the offense of Mike Brown when he's taking over that position mid-season. So that answer from Domas. And then what he said right there, right? He right now should be down in Southern California working with some teammates. He didn't name any names specifically, but I asked him about DeMar DeRozan, so I assume DeMar is one of them. I've heard rumors that Zach LaVine might also be there. I'm not 100% sure on that, haven't confirmed anything, but these guys are already working together. We've talked a lot about how Domas and DeMar worked on their two-man game together last offseason, and then we barely saw it, if at all, during the regular season. That's something that needs to change. So it sounds like Domas and DeMar at least are getting their work in together. All right, let's wrap this thing up.
Do you have plans for the rest of the summer? Is there rest and get away? Are you going to try and do anything internationally in terms of basketball?
No international basketball this summer. Just focusing on the team and trying to get this started off right.
Beyond this year, do you look at that international aspect of the game still as a possibility?
Oh, of course, every summer. I wish I was there. Lithuania just beat Georgia today, so I'm excited about that. and wish I was there with the guys. But next summer, obviously, there's nothing but World Cup, Olympics. The goal is always to play.
There's some guys that would like to see you as a possibility for the U.S. Would that ever?
That'll never happen. That'll never happen. Only Lithuania.
So Domas not playing any international basketball this summer, but made it very clear that when he does play international basketball, it's going to be for Lithuania and Lithuania only. No Team USA in there. Well, hope you enjoyed some of those comments from Domantas Sabonis. You want to share your thoughts on some of the things that Domantas Sabonis had to say, takeaways that you had from those answers from Domas, hit me up at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. But right now, I want to let you know that today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. If you're tired of endlessly scrolling to find the best deal through thousands of tickets to a specific event, looking for the seats that you want and the range that you want price-wise, well, Game Time Zone Deals pick the best seats in the section that you want for you. And if you want to know exactly what your view of the stage or the court or whatever is going to be like from that venue, especially if it's a venue you've never been to before, the panoramic seat view shows you everything, including where any obstacles might be, the angle that you're going to have to watching the stage or paying attention to what you're trying to pay attention to. Game Time goes above and beyond with that. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets and sports tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. It is NBA schedule release week. Last week, it was leaked or reported from Shams what the Christmas Day and opening night in the NBA schedules are. And surprise, surprise, the Sacramento Kings are not involved in either. Boo-hoo. We have to wait another year for the Kings to play on Christmas. But now is where the schedule leaks start to happen and people start getting their paws on the schedule or finding out specific games of when guys are returning or what opening night is. And of course, we have some of those leaks happening here in Sacramento. Some of our great reporters here in the Sacramento area giving us some details, some dates to circle on our calendar. Sean Cunningham shared that opening night for the Sacramento Kings, the first game of the season, will be on October 22nd, but it will be a road game. It'll be at Phoenix. The Kings' home opener is 2 days later on October 24th inside the Golden One Center against the Utah Jazz. And the next game after that, another home game. And this is a big one. October 26th, the Kings will welcome in LeBron James, Luka Doncic, and the Los Angeles Lakers. So those are the first 3 games of the season for the Sacramento Kings, as reported by Sean Cunningham. James Ham gave us a couple of additional dates. On December 27th and January 6th, the Sacramento Kings will host Cooper Flagg and also, of course, Anthony Davis and the Dallas Mavericks. Hopefully those games go significantly better than the play-in tournament went. And then we have to wait all the way till March 17th for De'Aaron Fox and the San Antonio Spurs to come into town. That's pretty, that is the end of the season. And who knows if the Kings will have anything to play for at that time. Who knows if the San Antonio Spurs will have anything to play for at that time. I think they're going to be absolutely fighting for playoff positioning. So that might be an important time of the year for the Spurs, for the Kings. Who knows? Flip a coin. They could be in the playoff hunt. They could be out of the playoff hunt. They could have made a bunch of trades at the deadline. Who knows what the Kings are going to be like in March? We don't even know what the Kings are going to be like in October, truth be told. And then Damian Barling from ESPN 1320, of course, friend of the show, D-Lo, shared that Mike Brown, as the head coach of the New York Knicks, makes his one stop in Sacramento, his return to Sacktown on January 14th. And while I know Mike to be a fantastic guy and a guy that doesn't really speak bad about anything. I'll be honest with you. I've been able to maintain a relationship with Mike. Shouldn't surprise anybody. Mike is one of the favorite coaches in my career that I've ever gotten to cover, just because of not just the person that he was and the success that he had here in Sacramento, but the time that he took with myself and other media members to teach the game and to share and to talk, and treating us like a lot of coaches sometimes will treat media like we're against them or anything like that. Mike is not that kind of guy. I recognize the mistakes that Mike made. Mike knows the mistakes as well. We've actually had conversations about those mistakes, but Mike has had plenty of opportunities, guys, to tell me off the record and like everything that's wrong and rip into whether it's ownership or anybody here in Sacramento. And he's never done it. He shared his perspective on what happened, but I'm telling you, Mike Brown has never said a bad thing about the city of Sacramento, never said anything bad about the organization, truth be told, even despite of how everything went. So I don't expect Mike to be coming in here ready to light the place on fire or anything like that, but you best believe there's going to be a chip on his shoulder. Plus the New York Knicks, they have championship or bust expectations. So the Knicks will, I imagine, be on the warpath when they come into Sacramento on January 14th. These are the dates that we know for now. Of course, when the full schedule drops, we will do an episode where we run through it. And we look at the longest homestands, longest road trips, some of the other marquee matchups. And I'm not the biggest fan of like going through the schedule and trying to predict win-loss records or anything like that, but we will break down the schedule, work our way through it when it drops later on this week. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Also, stick around, because before we wrap up, there's some news, an update kinda on the Jonathan Kuminga situation that should make Kings fans smile, and Warrior fans should feel a little bit sick to their stomach. I'll share with you what that is here in just a second. I know many of you have Jonathan Kuminga fatigue. You've probably enjoyed that we haven't talked about it for a while here on Locked On Kings. That's why I'm saving it for the last segment, because it's not a massive thing, but just an update on the situation. ESPN released an article, really good article, where their insiders from different markets came together and put together like reports or updates on the latest free agents, or the free agents that are still out there, still available, still looking for teams. And the first two names in that article are Russell Westbrook and Jonathan Kuminga. Russell Westbrook still linked to the Sacramento Kings. League sources expect Russ to be a Sacramento King. The article even mentions that Russ would come in here and likely have a backup role behind Dennis Schroeder, which makes a ton of sense. So the Kings still above and beyond the favorite to bring Russell Westbrook here into Sacramento. There's still questions of how they do it and the logjam at the guard position and who gets the playing time and who doesn't, right? Because even if we take Devin Carter out of the equation, right? You have Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook as your point guard 1 and 2. You've still got Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, and Keon Ellis to figure out how to work all three of those guys in. You're certainly not benching Keon. Malik is too important not to get playing time. Zach LaVine's going to start and be the number one option on offense. So the Kings have a lot to figure out with that guard position still, but Russell Westbrook still. Nothing Kuminga's side. No real mention of the Sacramento Kings. The focus via Anthony Slater, who does a phenomenal job covering the Golden State Warriors. Slater put out there that the stalemate continues between the Warriors and Kuminga. The Warriors have offered Kuminga a 2-year deal in the $40 million range and have essentially tried to make the second year a team option so that it is easier for them to trade Kuminga at the deadline. They're trying to sell it to Kuminga as if like, look, you signed this deal. It'll be easier for us to move you to a new location. We know you want to move on. This is our best way of doing that while also we get something good out of it. Kuminga's going, hell no, I'm not going to sign a team-friendly deal for a team that I don't trust. Like Kuminga does not trust the Golden State Warriors at all to do the right thing by him. I think that's perfectly clear. So Kuminga is not interested in signing this deal. And Anthony Slater reported that Kuminga is more willing to sign the qualifying offer, which if you don't understand what the qualifying offer is, it's like a $7.5 or something like that $1 million 1-year deal. It's essentially like the franchise tag in the NFL. It would be a doom scenario for the Golden State Warriors. Literally like horrible scenario for the Warriors. He'd sign a 1-year deal. He has, as part of the qualifying offer, a no trade clause, meaning the Warriors cannot trade him unless he signs off on it. So the Warriors could try and ship him off to whoever to improve their roster at the trade deadline. But if he don't like it, he can no. I'll just sit here and count my money. And I'll wait, and then I'll become an unrestricted free agent next year, and I'll pick where I want to go. This is the scenario that the Sacramento Kings are sitting back and going, good luck. Like, we have an out. We have this Malik Monk in a first-round lottery-protected first-round pick deal right there for you. If you want to avoid going through this and actually get something out of it, here you go. Right? This is where Scott Perry feels confident. Like, I don't got to sweeten the pot anymore. Like, you are potentially running into a scenario where this is horrible for you, and you might lose Kuminga completely for nothing and not be able to trade him. And we can just revisit our conversation with Kuminga next season. We already have an understanding of both sides want to work together between Sacramento and Kuminga's camp. We have an idea of a dollar figure. Like, we can pick this up where we left off this time next year. So this is why Perry feels confident. That would be a horrible scenario for the Warriors. And I do agree to some extent that it wouldn't look good for Jonathan Kuminga either. However, if you're the Sacramento Kings, I don't think you're judging Kuminga too much on sticking to his guns. And I don't think it drastically at all impacts his value to where the Kings go, oh, okay, now we're not as willing to give you that money. Maybe we're going to give you a little bit less now. I don't believe that. I know the Kings want Kuminga. I know they're very aware of the situation with the Golden State Warriors. Kuminga clearly does not trust the Warriors one bit, so he's not going to do them any favors. And the qualifying offer is the one bit of leverage that Kuminga has. And sounds like he's willing to take the risk, bet on himself, and use that leverage. So we'll see who bends or who breaks first. Of course, we'll continue to monitor that here on the Locked On Kings podcast. The Kuminga situation is not over and done with, but I'm glad from the Kings side it slowed down. Now the Kings, like all of us, can grab a box of popcorn and just sit back and watch, see what happens on that side. You want to weigh in on the Kuminga situation? Again, your thoughts on Domantas Sabonis, your thoughts on the schedule, hit me up at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below too. And no matter how you watch or listen to this podcast, if you could do me a tremendous favor, head on over to Apple Podcasts. That's the best place for you to leave a review of this show. Hit 5 stars if you think the show is worthy of that. And then there's a little box there where you can leave kind of a 1 or 2 sentence blurb about what you like about the show or why you'd encourage others to listen to it, or even constructive criticism in there, right? Some people use it to give me like a note of, hey, fix this, or I wish this was different, or whatever you want to do. I'd hope it was 5 stars still, or a 5-star review, but head on over there. I would really, really appreciate it. It helps the show out a ton. Appreciate your support as always. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of the Locked On Kings podcast. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.